Hey guys, Jad here, and today I'm going to review the second film in the Vacation film series, which is European Vacation. So the story of this is basically at the beginning we see the Griswold family is on this game show called Pig in a Poke, where it's a pretty ridiculous looking game show where they have to dress up as pigs and stuff. Yeah, it's pretty funny because of that. And I like the theme song. Pig in a poke, it pays to be a glutton. Pig in a poke. Yeah, because they win that game show, they get to go on a vacation around Europe, and they go to these countries that the flags are on here. So they go to Britain, then France, then Germany, and then Italy. So yeah, I mean, I think this one European Vacation isn't quite as popular as the first film or the Christmas film, but I still think this one's pretty fun. I mean, this is quite overlooked. I will say it's not quite as funny as those other two that I mentioned, but I still think this is pretty fun. Um, One thing I do like about the film is some of the cameos in it. Like I mentioned the pig in the poke scene. That game show, the host is played by John Astin from the Addams Family TV show, and he's always great in anything he's in, and he's still alive today, still doing great. So it's great to see him in this. And when they go to England, there's some very recognizable people from British comedy in there. You have when they stay at this hotel, the manager there is played by Mel Smith. He plays a very lazy sort of hotel manager. He's good in that role. And also in the hotel, you have Robbie Coltrane there, and you have a pretty funny scene with him, with a kind of a mix-up where Ellen's in the bath, and Robbie Coltrane comes in, and she thinks she's talking to Clark, but it's not him. And sadly, Mel Smith and Robbie Coltrane both sadly no longer with us, so rest in peace to them. Then also, because they're driving on the other side of the road, like Clark has trouble with that, and he crashes into some cars. And one car he crashes into, there's an old man in it. He comes out to talk to him. He's played by Ballard Berkeley, who is the major in Faulty Towers. That's nice to see him. And also they run into a bike, and the cyclist is played by Eric Idle, and he shows up again later when they're in Italy, and Clark injures him again there. But yeah, he's played by Eric Idle, and there's a bit where like blood spurts out of him, and he says, "Oh, don't worry, it's just a flesh wound." A reference to the Holy Grail. That was a nice reference, even though John Cleese was the one who said it in Holy Grail. But oh well. And apparently, the Eric Idle character was originally supposed to show up in more vacation movies. I think it would have been cool if they brought him back, but yeah, I heard apparently there was one they were going to do called Australian Vacation, and they were going to have Eric Idle's character in that again. That I would have really liked to see, but yeah, shame that didn't happen. I heard that Mel Smith's role was originally intended for Rowan Atkinson, which is pretty interesting because Mel Smith, of course, worked with Rowan Atkinson in this great show, Not the 9 O'Clock News, and then later on, Mel Smith directed Rowan Atkinson in the first Mr. Bean movie. But yeah, as much as I love Rowan Atkinson, I do kind of feel like Mel Smith was better for this sort of role. Rowan Atkinson would later play a hotel manager himself in The Witches. That was nice. I remember talking with a guy in the comments on YouTube, Frenzy, or The Movie Goer. He's a good guy. He was talking about like British hotel managers in movies and shows. Like he mentioned Mel Smith in this movie, you mentioned Rowan Atkinson in The Witches, John Cleese in Faulty Towers, Tim Curry in Home Alone 2, and also Rick Mayall in Guest House Paradiso. And I know Frenzy is also a big fan of the movie Brain Donors, which Mel Smith was in, and I reviewed that earlier this year, and I really liked it. And I'm sure Frenzy also likes a lot of the other cameos from people in British comedy in this film, since I know he's a fan of British comedy. And I will mention this. I believe John Hughes is credited for this movie, but I believe he didn't actually have that much to do with it. I forgot to mention in my review of the first one that John Hughes wrote it. And these films have National Lampoon in the title of them. If you don't know what that means, I believe National Lampoon was like a comic, and some of the films that are National Lampoons, they're based on comics, but some of the other films that have National Lampoon in the title actually have nothing to do with the comic. They're just using that as brand recognition. But yeah, John Hughes wrote the Vacation stories in the comics, and except his comics were set in the 50s, whereas the movies they updated the time period to what was then modern day. And in terms of the movies, the only ones of the Vacation movies that are actually based on stories from those comics are the first one and the Christmas one, which John Hughes wrote those movies for. Yeah. There's a weird kind of continuity error in this film where in the other Vacation movies their last name is spelt Griswold, with an O. But in this film, for whatever reason, their name is spelt Griswold with an A instead of the O. Not entirely sure how that mistake happened, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of an interesting continuity error. Another thing, of course, is they recast the two kids, Audrey and Rusty. Now, this became a tradition in all the films. And I think in Christmas Vacation and Vegas Vacation, they did it to stop them from getting too old. But I don't think that's the case in this one, because, Jason Lively, who played Rusty in this, it was born the same year as Anthony Michael Hall, who played him in the first film, and Dana Hill, who played Audrey in this one, was born 2 years before Dana Barron, who played her in the first film. I believe what it was that Dana Barron was unable to do it. Anthony Michael Hall was still available, and they were originally going to have him, but they decided it might feel wrong to have one of the kids be the same actor and the other one be a different actor, so they decided to recast both of them. But you can see in this film that this movie's version of Rusty is a lot hornier than the version in the first film, I guess because he is a bit older now, but then in Christmas Vacation he would get younger again. But yeah, he chats a lot with girls that he meets during their travels, and at the end when they're in Italy, there's this woman he's talking to. She's from California actually, and she was in Rome with him, and she was played by Moon Unit Zappa, who's Frank Zappa's daughter. And yes, her name really is Moon Unit. I'd say overall the actors who played Rusty and Audrey in this one were alright, but I do prefer the actors who played them in the first film. Now, I know Dana Hill, who played Audrey in this, I know she was also the voice of Jerry in the shitty Tom and Jerry movie. Not the more recent one, I mean the animated one from the 90s. And sadly, that Tom and Jerry movie was actually her last movie before she died. Yeah, she sadly ended up dying really young. Admittedly, I did think it was a bit annoying how much, Audrey always whines in this movie about her boyfriend who's at home, and then she starts hating him, and then she wants to be with him again. Yeah, that was a bit annoying, to be honest. But overall, Dana Hill was alright in the role, and rest in peace to her. And I like some of the humour with the cultural differences, like how Clark, is getting used to driving in England. He finds it weird. The wheel is on the other side of the car, and also driving, he has to drive on the other side of the road. I said he crashes into Ballard Berkeley and Eric Idle. And also the scene where he's on a roundabout and he just goes around for ages and can't find how to get out. Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, I listened to the commentary, and in the commentary, Chevy Chase mentioned he had a lot of people tell him that happened to them as well. Even people from England will say that they can relate to that. And also you have this bit where Clark films Ellen doing this sexy dance where she's only wearing a towel, out of the shower, and he promises to delete that, but. And he also films them making out at the end of that video. But he says he'll delete that, but then when they're in France, this guy steals their camera, and Ellen says that's gone, isn't it? And he says, oh yeah, sure. But then later on, when they're in Italy, it turns out that video has been released as a movie, and Ellen is just so mad at Clark and can't forgive him. Yeah. That's pretty ridiculous and also funny. And also the whole chase scene at the end in Italy is really a lot of fun as well. I do also like when they're in Germany, they meet with people, they say, like Ellen's relatives, and then at the end they're speaking German and there's subtitles, and they say, like, who were those people? Beats the shit out of me. And also when they're in France, like they don't understand what the waiter's saying, but the waiter's actually being really rude to them. Yeah, I mean, it does kind of play off the stereotype of French people being rude, but yeah, that waiter bit I thought was quite funny. I did find it quite funny when Clark reverses the car and knocks over the Stonehenge like they're dominoes. Yeah, I quite like having them as just big dominoes, but it was at the same time it was a bit predictable because Clark goes on about how, oh, this has been standing here for thousands of years and it's going to stand for 1,000 more, and then he knocks them over. I think if he didn't go on about it as much, it would have been funnier. And also, like, when there's a woman like with her holding her dog on the Eiffel Tower, and they throw their berets down, and the dog goes to catch them, and that was a bit predictable. With having a woman holding it, you can kind of tell something's going to happen. Also, you see the dog land in the water, which I listened to the commentary, and Chevy Chase said, like, oh, we had to show that because we can't show a dog getting killed, but you showed a dog getting killed in the first one. Well, you don't see it, but yeah, and they killed off an old lady in the first film, and they kill off a cat in the Christmas one, so I don't know what he was talking about saying you have to show that the dog made it out okay. And I do also like the dream sequences that they have when they're on the aeroplane. Like this scene on the cover is from the scene where Clark has like this dream about him being in The Sound of Music. He's spinning around to that and it's playing the song, and yeah, that was actually filmed at the same place where they filmed the movie The Sound of Music, so that's cool. And there's also like a dream about them meeting the royal family, and they have the actress Jeanette Charles playing the Queen there, and she's played the Queen in a lot of things. Like she was in the first Naked Gun, she was in the third Austin Powers, she was in the Rutles mockumentary All You Need Is Cash with Eric Idle, who's in this movie. And funnily enough, I did watch Norm Macdonald's Netflix talk show where they had Chevy Chase as a guest in one episode, and I remember in that he was saying that he didn't like the Rutles because he thought it was insulting to the Beatles, but I definitely have to disagree with him on that. I think the Rutles is pretty funny. Of course, in the opening credits of this movie, they played the Holiday Road song, which was in the opening credits of the first film, and I think that's a great song. And I love the song in the end credits for this movie, the Back in America. And I like how during the credits it's showing pictures of American icons. I thought that was a really nice way to do the end credits. And as for other songs in the movie, I like how when they're in London they played the song A Town Called Malice, because that's a very British type song. And when they're looking at an art gallery when they're in France, it's playing that song like Zap Lampoon, wah wah. Yeah, that's I believe the artist for that song is actually Belgian, but the song is still in French, so it still matches that setting. Now, in America, the first one was rated R, and then all the sequels were rated PG-13, apart from the Ed Helms one, which was rated R. This one, was the first one of the ones that was rated PG-13, but it's still quite sexual, to be honest. I mean, there's less swearing, but it's still pretty sexual. I mean, here in the UK, it's rated 15, which is the same rating as the first film. This came up before we had the 12 rating in the UK, but I believe they have still, resubmitted it to the BBFC in more recent years, and it's still gotten a 15 rating. The first Vacation came up before there was the PG-13 rating in America, so that's probably why they went for an R rating. It's similar to how the first Police Academy was rated R, but then the second one was PG-13, and then all the other sequels after that were just PG. And I think also Caddyshack, the first one, was rated R, and then Caddyshack 2, I think, was just PG. So, I mean, overall, I think this is a fun film. I do enjoy it, but overall, I would recommend these two films a lot more. I think these two films are a lot better. But, European Vacation, it's fun for what it is. But, yeah, and we're coming up to December, so next I'll review the Christmas Vacation one very soon in the month of December, so look forward to that. So thanks everyone for watching, and bye.